In these perilous times, see from current events how biblical prophecy is coming to pass in front of our eyes. You're watching In the Last Days, the program that looks at Israel and the end times with teaching from a Hebraic perspective. With Martin and Natalie Blackham, thank you to our friends and partners who make this program possible. Now, here's Martin and Natalie.
Hi, welcome to the In the Last Days television program. We warmly welcome you wherever you're watching today, across Europe, in our friends in the UK, and on the internet. Great to have you with us. The In the Last Days television program looks at Israel news, headlines. We are covering these things for you. So don't forget, you can always email us at info@inthelastdays.com. We've got a very special guest on the program today. You're not going to want to miss any of this, and tell all your friends. We've got Yishai Fleisher. Great to have you with us. Thank you so much for coming across today.
It's great to be here, Martin. Thank you.
You've actually, funny enough, you've actually come from east to west, because you've come from the Mount of Olives, and I guess we're in the west in Haradah. So, but both sides of Jerusalem, you've come, especially today. And a lot of the people, Yishai, who are watching today, a lot of our viewers will know your voice, because you have a very, when you were program director at Arutz Sheva, Israel National Radio, they would listen to the program. So many of you will already know Yishai, but you are the only English language radio show host in Israel.
On FM.
On FM. Yeah, that's interesting in itself, because when we first came here, we didn't find any English language radio. I guess there isn't really maybe a need for that, or is that why there isn't?
There's about 250,000 to 300,000 English speakers here in Israel. When you're in Jerusalem, you think the whole country speaks English, but it doesn't. There's 1 million Russian speakers, for example. But on the other hand, there's fewer Ethiopians, and yet there is Amharic broadcasting. And the irony is that English is the lingua franca of the world today, and it would just make so much more sense to have more English coming out of Israel. And the irony is that people talk a lot about Israel having bad hasbara. This is an Israeli term meaning to say explaining Israel's position. Well, if you're not going to have media in English, then how are you going to explain Israel's position?
And the interesting thing is, the program that you do on Galei Yisrael 106.5 FM, the program is in English, but you're surrounded by Hebrew. So in other words, if you're in Israel and you're visiting Israel, you've come on a tour or something, and you're here, and you hear Yishai, you're surrounded by the Hebrew. So how does that work? Because that's quite interesting.
Well, you know, it was a lot of providential kind of good fortune that I was able to get into that station. In general, Israelis speak English in that they understand English, but when they hear this kind of conversation, it just goes a little too fast for them. But the station was very concerned that maybe they would lose market share. But I convinced them that since the station was also meant for primarily the Jews of Judea and Samaria and Jerusalem, there's a lot of English speakers there, and this whole lingua franca idea, so they agreed. And in the end, it's growing, and people are interested. We have also Arab populations, all kinds of visitors to the country that speak English. So you have to have something in English. It's not yet as big as it could be or it should be, and I guess really that leads to the whole analysis of where Israel is today. Is it a country that is already geared to being a light unto the nations, or is it still a country that sees itself in a very defensive posture? You know, Israel is a place that people see it differently depending on their perspective. I mean, like everything else in this world, but Israel is extreme. For example, Indians, if you speak with Indians in India, they will tell you Israel has at least 400 million people and is a gigantic country in the Middle East. Why? Because they see a lot of Israelis. We have a lot of economic interests together. And so they think Israel is a massive country. But in truth, Israel is still a tiny country, and it's been tinier since the West has been pushing very hard for us to relinquish our land. It shrank a lot in the years that I've been alive. When I was born, Israel also had the Sinai, and we also had Gaza Strip, and we also had at some point the southern strip of Lebanon, although that was a security strip. In any case, Israel has shrunk, and it's really a country surrounded by a very hostile, and not only hostile but very turbulent Middle East. So Israelis, we live with a lot of consciousness that our back is against the wall. Yes, we have friends like the Canadian Prime Minister who was in town recently, Stephen Harper. But still, at the same time, we do see ourselves surrounded by Lebanon, Syria, Jordan. Out there is Iraq and Iran and Saudi Arabia and Egypt. We see ourselves with our back against the wall. So Israel doesn't always have the consciousness of broadcasting. That's why shows like yours, Martin, are so important, because they really get out the message of Israel. And if I'm already there, let me just add that today the machinery of media is trying so hard to cover up the story of Israel, the miraculousness of Israel, the exciting benefits to the world of Israel, instead of being promoted and portrayed as what it is, which is the light unto the nations in just in terms of things like human rights, clean water, upward mobility, education, opportunities for work and for normal life, and security. Those great things that Israel is giving the world, and certainly the Middle East, are being covered up by a cataract of lies that want to paint Israel as the apartheid state. There's plenty of apartheid in the Middle East. We're not the apartheid people, okay? We're the freedom people. And media has been co-opted around the world to really propagate a lie about Israel and to darken. They are somehow serving the forces of evil, and your show is therefore very important as an answer to that.
I think one of the other issues we have is that as journalists, the news tends to look at stories which are, people throwing stones is far more interesting than some people walking around the center of Jerusalem. That the news tends to be, and you may find this at home when you're watching the news from Israel, that it tends to cover stories which are maybe of a terrorist attack or something like that, and then it puts it all out of proportion because this is happening somewhere. Meanwhile, everybody else is enjoying life, and so that's one of the issues, as well as the bias of the news channels towards the Palestinians and towards delegitimization of Israel. We also have a problem that the news is only looking for certain stories.
That is a global problem with news in general. Television as a medium has stopped being used for what it really is, a great gift that God has given this world of education. I'm always showing, my daughter asked me today about fungus. What is fungus? So we go right to YouTube, we type in fungus, and we show her the beautiful nature that God created and what a great gift YouTube is, but the majority of that usage is sadly for debasing. So much of media today is about debasing humanity in general, certainly debasing women, but debasing just human value. So much violence and kind of loveless sexuality all over our TV screens. So that's definitely a problem. When it comes to Israel, it really throws it off. We Jewish people have been persecuted for 2,000 years, and we're living really in the best of times right now that the Jewish people have had in a very long time. And our lives are filled with the sounds of children asking to have their breakfast, and wives telling their husbands to go out and get this or that, and the sounds of traffic of Jewish people and other minorities that live in our country, in this great city of Jerusalem and Tel Aviv and everywhere. And we have so much bustling life, and yet, of course, it's the darkness that is always portrayed. But
and you've got the Western Wall and the Temple Mount to some degree.
Well, the Western Wall is the Western Wall. It's an amazing philosophical irony in this world. Certain things that are great sanctification of God's name can also, with one fell swoop, become the desecration of God's name. So when you're doing something that you're broadcasting the good news about Israel, you could easily be broadcasting the darkness. The Western Wall is a great gift to us. We've returned to Jerusalem and to that central hub where God is broadcasting from, really. But at the same time, it is a lie to misrepresent the Western Wall as the yearning of the Jewish people. It is the outside retaining wall of the Temple Mount complex, and our place of prayer, of offering, was on the Temple Mount itself. Today, there is a Muslim shrine there, and not only is there a Muslim shrine, but there is an edict to stop Jews from praying. We are monitored. Our lips are monitored. Our lips are monitored. They make sure that an average
just
Jew...
explain. If you've just tuned in, we've got Yishai Fleisher on the show. We're just talking about the Temple Mount. What we're talking about is when you come to Israel, you go to the Western Wall, and then you go up the ramp, and then the famous or infamous Alaska, the Dome of the Rock, and we're talking about this area on the top.
Right.
which not everybody can. More and more, what is exciting is more and more tourists are going to see it, but we're talking about the problem of Jewish people being able to even access. And I've seen even Jewish people being not even allowed in.
Sure, sure. We don't have freedom of religion and self-expression in some parts of Jerusalem, and generally the jihad is a repressive movement globally, and it's certainly repressive here in Israel. You know, for both for Christianity and for Islam, the Six-Day War was a big, let's call it theological revelation / problem. Okay, what happened for the classical Christian outlook, when, you know, let's say dominated by the Catholic Church, was that the Jews were around as a doctrine of the witness. They were there in order to show that since they had rejected the true religion, they were in trouble, and they had been in trouble for 2,000 years, and that's the only reason why they were around. So in 1967, when God basically showed His hand in such a way that He hadn't done since the splitting of the Red Sea, that's what the Six-Day War was. You know, there was a theological problem, and people had to reconcile the revelation that God promised in the Bible is coming true with the Jews. So a lot of, you know, Christians came with the consciousness of, well, how do we deal with this? And some, the Restorationists and others, were ready to assimilate God's miraculousness for the Jewish people in their theology. For Islam, they never found a way to reconcile that, although, and in this week's Jerusalem Post I write about that, although even in Islam, there are streams of what we call Muslim Zionism. They're just very suppressed by the jihad. The jihad has a very hard time with Israel, this shiny, beautiful Israel, being in the throat of the Muslim world here in the Middle East, and they've had a theological problem. Instead, they have created a theology that says the devil. The devil is very active, it seems, with the Jewish people, and in their mind, these interlopers, these foreigners, these non-Middle Easterners, these they don't even think we're Jews, or somehow come in and usurp their lands. Of course, that's not true.
This is one of the major things, I think, Yishai, when we're trying to explain this whole thing, is that to establish, first of all, number one, that this is the Jewish nation, historically, the claim of the Jewish people to the land of Israel. Because if we don't start with that premise, then we're getting mixed up with population movements, with the Bedouin who've moved around the Middle East, with Arabs, with maybe even Europeans who've settled in the Middle East. But if we don't establish for the people, and this is why, you know, the program is so important that you do, is that we don't have the premise. We don't have any understanding that the Jewish people have been here since the beginning.
Well, let me correct you just a tad. Or let me just interject a thought here. In the 20s and 30s, the world did have that consciousness. Okay, in San Remo, in the Balfour Declaration, the League of Nations, the world, 56 or 59 countries, came together, and they were all unanimously in agreement that the Jewish people were to be restored and that they had historical rights to this land. It is only since really the great knowledge of the effect of propaganda on the human psyche, basically since the Hitler regime and the communist regime, which really created this kind of mind control apparatuses, that systematic erasure of our historical connection has been propagated to the world. To not understand that the Jewish people are a tribe that was evicted 2,000 years ago and has made their way back, I would argue miraculously, but you don't have to use that language if you're not comfortable with that. But the reinstitution of the Jewish people back to their ancestral homeland with the return of the same language that was spoken 2,000 years ago, with the same coinage, with the same holidays, with the same national characteristics, that is an amazing thing. And you really have to create and I know this show goes out to a lot of British folks are watching this show today. So I remember a great quote that I read on Rosh Hashanah. I once read a book by Martin Gilbert about D-Day, and he talks about Churchill. You know about Churchill? Interesting fellow, right? And he when he was planning D-Day, he created all kinds of lies in order to hide the operation. And he said the canopy, the beautiful bride, of this Operation D-Day has to be brought to the canopy, surrounded by a train of lies. That's the only way it's going to make it there. And Israel is marching forward with all of the jihad and all of the hate and all of the BDS and all the efforts. The project of the Jewish people's return and ingathering to the land of Israel is unstoppable. It is a march that is so powerful. And let's just talk about it statistically. In the last 40 years, the Jewish population of this country has doubled. So with all the hate and all of the boycotts, no success. And that drives our enemies insane. That's fine with me.
Because
we're coming home.
This is what I was going to say. This is one of your passions, is aliyah, which is the return, the historic return of the Jewish people to the land of Israel. And you've been very involved. You've had the aliyah revolution. Some of you, I know some of our viewers may even have seen the famous video, which we loved, which was the guy whose mother, he says that which is based on The Matrix, and which is a film, and the guy realizes that he should make aliyah, and you were very involved in and maybe we can talk a bit about that, the aliyah revolution.
That's a term I came up with, that very term I came up with it. And look, I came from, I'm originally born in Israel, but I lived in the United States for a long time. Now, the United States is a wonderful country. We all understand what a great influence it's had on the world, and much of it very positive. The idea of the Constitution, of freedoms, of liberties, for the equality of mankind is a very deep idea, and it has really, I think, successfully permeated a lot of the world. But at the same time, North America holds a great danger for the Jewish people, and that danger is that it is a seductive existence there. And the Jewish people have been building up their ability to survive in the diaspora for a long time. And when you get into a comfortable diaspora, you're not so quick to shift out of it. And so the great revelation that the land of Israel has opened up its arms to her children, to the Jewish people, that Jerusalem is being rebuilt, isn't always appreciated, or in a sense, I mean fully appreciated, in circles of success, as American Jewry has indeed had. So it wasn't only a psychological or a cerebral conclusion, it was also a visceral, emotional one, which is, I hear the call of the land of Israel calling her children back home. And when I was living in New York, although I appreciated New York very much, I saw that my fellow co-nationalists, my fellow tribesmen, did not see that the homeland and the incredible romance and adventure of building up this country was at hand. So I started pushing and agitating. And you know what? I find that with Jews, when you agitate with them, when you stick it in their face, they wake up to it. And so that's what we did, and that's what we continue to do. We continue to talk about it, and we continue to have more and more, I call it dandelions, that they just leave and kind of get on that parachute and go to the land, and they hear that call, and they come on home. And we're ingathering from four corners. We see now the seductive destruction that happens to American Jews. That is 71% intermarriage rate amongst the unaffiliated. So our nation.
So for the viewers, what that could mean is that the people who are now called or were called Jews in the past could intermarry and disappear, and virtually disappear into the American population.
The Jewish people will never disappear as a people. That's a historical anomaly, and that's proof positive that God exists. But American Jewry will disappear at some point. There's no question about that. Just like there's no any more Spanish Jewry or Polish Jewry. There was once or in Vilna or in these great cities. You will see them slowly but surely, one way or another. Aliyah is just a small part of it. Low birth rate, a high intermarriage rate, an aging population. They will disappear. That is the era that we're living in. Israel is the focal point. There maybe will be some Jews that are left around the world, but God says, I will ingather all of them. But that is the statistical direction that the Jewish people are heading into. As I said before, we have now doubled our population here.
So
some people are afraid of that. I'm not afraid of that.
So when you go to speak in the States, and I know that that people want to go and hear you and be parts of those meetings. Is it uncomfortable for them because suddenly you're saying something which is going to be meaning a change of everything?
Well, I'm cautious when I speak to them, and I speak to them using a very important mode or important feeling, which is love. I try to speak to my family, my greater family, with love. I don't speak to them in a haughty manner or in any way that's unappreciative. I know their great successes, and I understand the great challenges, and I speak to them from a place of love. I want them to be my neighbors. I want them to take part in this great adventure, and I in no way want to look down upon them and say I'm somehow better than you. If I did that, then indeed it would chafe. But I don't let it chafe, because that's not my mission. My mission is not to look down, and I'm not preaching fire and brimstone. I'm saying, hey, what a great time we're living in. It's a great gift to live in this time. Let's be part of this adventure one way or another. So I say to people, take a minimal step, for example, which is on your Friday night Sabbath table, have a bottle of wine from the land of Israel. Imbibe from the Jordan River, from the air of Judea. Imbibe that wine and smile inside, for this is the greatest sign of the revelation of what you would call end times, is that the land of Israel is flourishing and is green, and you could be part of that in any small way. So yeah, if I would come down there and be like, it's all over for you guys, pack it up, you're like good as dead, sure, that would not work out. But I come from a place of love for my people and inspiration. That's what it's about.
And you say, one of the things that you say at Passover is next year in Jerusalem.
Right.
That's one of the key things that you say on the evening.
Right. Well, that was a good slogan for the time of the diaspora. In this era that we're living in, we like to say this year in Jerusalem, and it's also doable.
No.
It's also doable. Just get on that plane. One of my passions is, if you can't make aliyah, there's another kind of aliyah out there, which is the plain old meaning of aliyah, which is the 3 times a year in Jerusalem. We have a biblical commandment and a great cultural gift to Israel and to the world, which is the ingathering to Jerusalem 3 times a year. The Gentiles, I'm speaking there to you, out there and wherever you're watching this, there is a biblical commandment, and it's in the prophet Zechariah, to come to Jerusalem for Gentiles on the holiday of Sukkot, the festival of booths, right? So Jews are supposed to ingather 3 times a year. Even the Gentiles who want to see God, who want to witness God, need to come to Jerusalem during the festival of booths.
Do you think that the Israeli government are doing enough because there's Birthright, but I think that's an NGO, isn't it? The Birthright, where they bring groups across from the States. Birthright is, for the viewers, is an organization which will bring, I think it's primarily American Jews, but they come across.
All over the world. There's about 350,000 young Jews, 18 to 26.
But that's great, because they get exposed to Israel.
It's a free trip. It's a free trip. We've paid the Jewish people and wealthy Jews and the government of Israel pays for a 10-day free trip. I think it's a beautiful, beautiful thing.
And how can they can go? There's a website they can go on if they.
Birthrightisrael.com. Birthrightisrael.com. Absolutely, you must get on that trip. It's a life-changing experience. And they say that some 80% of American Jews have never even been to Israel. And that's the thing. The country sells itself. You come here, and it's just you fall in love. It's beautiful, and it's yours. You feel that it calls to you from every cell and parts of your spirit.
And what about, people would say, well, it's quite difficult to be here because they have to learn Hebrew and, maybe the job isn't, maybe finding work and things.
The Jewish soul is pre-bundled. It comes already from the store with Hebrew on board. All you have to do is tap into that. Hebrew it's not a language, it's your language. It's somewhere inside, and it's again, how do you want to live? Do you want to live, just going to Walmart and what kind of existence do you want? Do you want the existence of life? Am Yisrael Chai. The Jewish people are alive. They say today in science, if you want to get away from having Alzheimer's, learn another language. Challenge your brain. Get out there. The opportunity is yours to live. Be part of the passion of your times. I hate it when I see people who talk to me about missed opportunity. Don't miss the opportunity. That's what I tell people all the time.
And the Shabbat in Israel, that's very special, isn't it? When you hear the Shabbat horn go and the buses stop. everything's closed.
Israelis
People are going
love
home.
everybody else's culture. You know, we love the Indians' culture and the Thai people's culture. We have our own unique gifts, and we could see it through different lenses, from a godly lens, or from just a beautiful cultural lens. We have the Sabbath. The world today needs Sabbath more than any time, with all the internet and all the bleeping and tweeting and things in your face, and this thing on your screen and this instant messenger. You need a break. You need a day of family, a day of spirituality, a day to turn off the car, not smoke that cigarette, and that's the Sabbath. That's an amazing gift.
Now, I know that there'll be a lot of people tuning in who will say, we want to visit, to get in touch with what you're doing. They can do that. What's the website?
I'm embarrassed to tell you, my website name is my name. I never wanted that. You know, I wanted but everybody convinced me that's the way it works today. So today you can find it at YishaiFleisher.com. You could see some of my videos at eyeonzion.com as well. Yishai Fleisher is, I guess, you do what you can with what the gifts that God has given you, and the organization is Kuma, which means arise. And the opportunity there is to have everybody have a media diet, like they're watching your show, Martin, End of Days. So too, you need steady stream of something to get you out of the media coma and the lies, and you're going to get that on my show, thank God.
Thanks so much for coming in today. We hope to get you in next week. It's been great to have you all with us. Don't forget, if you want to email us, you can email us at info@inthelastdays.com, or visit the website www.inthelastdays.com. And don't forget, we're living in the last days.
You've been watching In the Last Days, a TV program with Martin and Natalie Blackham, the program that looks at Israel and the end times with teaching from a Hebraic perspective. If you would like to financially support the program or find out about conferences, meetings, or ministry products, then please contact us with the details on your screen. Visit our easy-to-use website at www.inthelastdays.com and register for our free e-newsletter. Get the latest news from Israel, product information, online video teaching, or watch today's TV program at a time that's convenient to you. Thank you again, friends and partners, for making this program possible.
See you same time, same station for the next program from In the Last Days.